Hello and welcome to the Lit Fest. I hope all of you are uh, in good health and in good spirit after months of disruption caused by the pandemic in our daily life. Unfortunately, this year we could not meet in person in the Pondicherry, but we are here together in the form of this digital Lit Fest. Today, I would want to speak on the Second Republic of India because I think that the First Republic of India is collapsing. The kind of anarchy, the kind of chaos, not anarchy or chaos in the general sense of the word that India is pretty stable as of now, but the sense of flux, the sense of anarchy which we feel, which we see, irrespective of which side of the ideological spectrum we belong to. I think that is happening because the First Republic of India is now giving way to the Second Republic of India. And how significant is this? You remember the last time a temple existed in Ayodhya. Krishnadev Raya was the emperor in the south, ruling over the mighty Vijayanagara Empire. Nuno da Cunha was the governor of the Portuguese India. Spanish conquistadors were setting foot in Texas, and Suleiman the Magnificent was inaugurating the era of Ottoman supremacy in West Asia and the East Europe. But today, in 2020, what do we see? We see a Ram temple in Ayodhya has been resurrected. We see that Jammu and Kashmir has been now completely fully integrated with the Republic of India. It was always the part of India, but now what we have is the full constitutional integration of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, which I would say is one of the defining feature of the First Republic giving way to the Second Republic. The First Republic of India, as we know, was founded on the myth of a secular socialist India, supposedly born out of this anti-colonial struggle, but in which Hindus and Muslims and everyone participated equally for supposedly a secular India, which our liberals want us to believe. But if we look at the India's freedom struggle, people, we find that India's freedom struggle, the modern national freedom struggle, was always a Hindu movement. From its very origin, the ideas which motivated it, the kind of mobilization which happened, the people who participated in it, the kind of language and symbolism which was deployed, which was used by the India's national struggle, it was outright a Hindu movement. Yes, of course, the Muslims did participate in it. Remember, India is a very large country. So even if 10 or 20% of Muslims are participating in the freedom struggle, you will have n number of examples of great Muslim leaders and revolutionaries being part of our anti-colonial struggle. But Muslim society as a whole did not participate in this freedom struggle. Whenever they were mobilized in the freedom struggle or the national movement or against the British, it was mostly on the religious plank. And most of the issue had nothing to do with the India as a country or India as a civilization. It was always about pan-Islamism. Khilafat movement is a prime example. But I would also go a step further and say that the India's freedom struggle or the national struggle was simply the continuation of the Hindu resurgence which was underway before the British came to India. By the 18th century, in fact, by the end of the 17th century itself, the Islamic power in India was broken. The Marathas Marathas were the predominant power in India, and also in various parts of the country, the Muslim power was in retreat, and there was a massive Hindu resurgence which was going on. Temples were being rebuilt. Maharani Ahilyabai Holkar was building most of the temples which you see in the North India today, because remember, under the Islamic rule, hardly any temple in the North India which was accessible was left standing. Now, India's freedom struggle has to be seen not just as anti-British movement. It was continuation of this wide tide of Hindu resurgence which was going on since before the British arrived in India, but which was disrupted quite decisively when the British were able to consolidate their power in India. And then it took a new form under the new circumstances. The new circumstances were the concept of nation, nationalism, democracy, this entire Western model which was taking shape not just in India or Asia but also within the Europe itself. Now the coming together of the various pagan traditions of India is a very long drawn process, So in India you see different traditions, different religious traditions which are essentially pagan traditions, and I know this word is used negatively by the Brahmist, but I will not use it as a negative word because I think pagans were great people. The pre-Christian pagans of Europe were great people. They were the builder of great civilizations. Basically, pagans were the one who brought humanity from subsistence to civilization. They discovered agriculture, they discovered mathematics, they did engineering, science, technology, architecture. The pagans were the one who built a human civilization. So I always take it as a very positive word. So the coming together of various pagan traditions in the Indian subcontinent under the umbrella of Hinduism is a very long drawn process. But it actually began to consolidate as a unified political identity. The idea of being Hindu is a very old idea in India. India being the land of Hindus is a very old idea. It goes beyond the modern era. Before the modern era. But it began to consolidate as a political identity, as a political entity in the colonial era in the form of the Hindutva. The Hindutva concept is driven by the attempt by the older pagan traditions which are united by a dharmic framework and intertwined by different rituals, Puranas, myths and legends to navigate the modern and intellectual and political landscape of the modern era dominated by the nation and the nation states. Now, Hindutva is not Hinduism. This is what we often hear. Basically, the liberals or the Islamists say, well, Islamists don't say for them it doesn't matter. It's anyways, something which has to be destroyed. But you see lots of people on the left and the liberals say that Hindutva is not Hinduism. Well, I tend to agree with them because Hindutva is not Hinduism. Hindutva is the Hindu political response to the political Islam and the Western imperialism. It basically seeks to forge Hindus into a modern nation state and create a powerful industrial state that can put an end to the centuries of persecution of Hindus in this part of the world. The persecution which has accelerated very dangerous in the last 100 years when the large parts of the Indian subcontinent were simply cleansed off the Hindu and Sikh presence. And also the Buddhist, no one who is a follower of the Indian religions remain in large swaths of the non-Western part of the Indian subcontinent and has more or less been destroyed even on the eastern flank. Now, India's freedom struggle was guided by this vision of Hindu nationalism. It was always guided by Hindu nationalism. You go and read them, you go and read even the Congress leaders, especially before the left wing becomes stronger in the Congress. Their language, the symbolism, their concerns, the idea of India was always a Hindu idea of India. And the Congress brand of nationalism was actually a subset of this broader Hindu nationalism. The Congress itself was the preeminent Hindu party. Now the entire problem of how to accommodate Muslims, because Muslims, as a political entity do not gel with any other community. So this was a major question facing India because Muslim population was pretty large. Overall it was around 20-25% of the population, but you had these pockets of really Muslim majority regions by the 20th century. So the idea was, how to deal with this intercommunal problem. So this problem basically forced the Congress to adopt a more tempered language, a more, denialist language that, no, we are not Hindu movement, we are not a Hindu country, we are a multicultural country, we are a secular country, we are whatnot, and the entire attempt was made to forge some Hindu-Muslim unity. But we know that failed completely. In fact, it's not surprising. Because if you go back to the Bhakti movement in the medieval ages, this brand of Bhakti which is called Nirvan Bhakti, which everyone loves to quote, was basically arguing on a social and political realm two main things. It was arguing against caste discrimination, that give up inequality, give up untouchability, treat everyone as equal because everyone is the children of the same supreme god, depending upon whatever strand of bhakti movement you belong to. And its second appeal was to the Muslims, that give up your religious supremacism, give up your exclusive claim towards the god, and start treating the non-Muslims as equals, as valid people, as someone who deserve equality and who also have the right to live and practice their faith. But even the Nirvan Bhakti movement completely failed. I mean, it completely failed on its second objective. It did achieve something on the first part, that these ideas of equality, all this anti-untouchability ideas did find a large audience within Hindu society, but the argument of giving up religious exclusivism did not find any major audience in the Muslim society. So, this Hindu-Muslim unity, this attempt to force this unity has always been a failure in the history. Of course, they can live together, but the unity is elusive, They can live together peacefully, no one is denying that. But this whole thing of unity of Hindus and Muslims becoming the one people, one nation has never worked. And no matter what the Congress did, it failed to prevent the partition of India. The Congress was later taken over by the left-leaning secular denialist under Jawaharlal Nehru, who instead of confronting the reality pretended it did not exist. The kind of policy, the geostrategic policy, the policy towards Pakistan which was adopted by the Congress party, especially by the Nehru, is bizarre. It defies any sense of logic. No one in the world would have been so blind and so confused about the real nature of the problem which you are confronting. Even when, hundreds and thousands of Hindus were being massacred in the East Bengal after the partition, this is after 2 or 3 years of the partition, the Congress government refused to send in the army to stop that massacre. At least if they could have done a humanitarian intervention, at least to provide a window to these Hindus to run away to India, but they did not do that. So basically they pretended that the reality did not exist, and they say, they still try to live in those 1920s and 1910 kind of delusion which they have built for themselves, which other side did not have. Now the reality was this, that India was partitioned, that Hindus and Muslims as a political community failed to live together. And it was proven decisively on the ground that they are two different nations. Now one may, contest it by bringing in different, arguments and all, but this is what happened. I mean, the Muslim League was validated by the partition of India. And the other reality was also very interesting. The other reality was that Republic of India, or the post-colonial state, was a sovereign state now, and it was a very powerful state. And after centuries, Hindus were the dominant power in the Indian subcontinent, politically speaking. Despite the self-denial, the post-colonial state was essentially a Hindu state. The misleading secular communal debate blinded us to the obvious, that the Republic of India is a Hindu reformist state. This state abolished the caste system, first time in the thousands of years of history of the Indian subcontinent. Republic of India is the first state to take a stand against caste system or take a stand against the caste discrimination. Basically say that we will not uphold it, we will in fact actively work to undermine it and treat everyone equal. This Indian state integrated and Sanskritized the large sections of the tribals and the Dalits. It codified the Hindu law. It revived the classical folk arts, classical dances, which are mostly Hindu arts and Hindu dances. It replaced Persian and Arabic from the use in the government and replaced it with Hindi and the other Indian languages. It also controlled and continues to control Hindu temple with popular legitimacy. I know there's lots of activism, directed against the government in the name of free the temples, but the point is that the government control over temple has popular legitimacy of the Hindus. Why is that? That's a different topic, but it is there. So the government controlled the Hindu temples. It even introduced element of uniformity in the temple administration, even in the laws by which they are governed, and it continues to intervene in the Hindu social and religious matters with popular legitimacy. It is because it is essentially a Hindu state. And this Hindu state refused to do the same with the Muslims or the Christians because it did not have the mandate. It was self-apparent to the people and the secular politicians of India, the so-called secular politicians of India, that India essentially is a Hindu state. We cannot interfere in the personal laws of the Muslims, but we can do everything we want with the Hindu society because we somehow have the mandate. And this is what I'm talking about. The Indian state, basically what it did, Indian state intensified the historical process of Hindu consolidation. Even as the Nehruvian elites denied that India is a Hindu polity above all. The Hindu nationalism in India has never been the fringe. It was Nehruvian secularism that was the fringe. Hindu nationalism has always been the bedrock of Indian polity for the past 200 years. And with the fall of the old English-speaking elites that we see today, this whole thing of Noida versus Lodi Road, the new urban elites which are coming up, they do not come from the old aristocratic urban elites of the Nehruvian era. These are basically middle class people who have moved from some towns and kasbas in UP or Bihar to Noida and Gurgaon, and they have done good for themselves after economic reforms, and they are now vying for control over India. So there is a major clash going on in India between the old urban centers of power and the new urban centers of power, which I call Noida versus Lodi Road. So now with the fall of the old English-speaking elites, the system they created, the entire polity they created is also collapsing, along with the accompanying myth like Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb and Hindu-Muslim unity. The harsh fact in the Indian subcontinent is that the Hindus and Muslims live together. That's an objective reality, but they always live together separately. You will not find even in the villages Hindus and Muslims living together as one people. Like they always live together in separate mohallas, in separate colonies, in separate villages, and they were always just an inch away from the brink. It hardly takes anything for Hindu-Muslim clashes to erupt. Hindu-Muslim rights were very common even before the independence. Even before the British were ruling India, there was lots of clash going on between the Hindus and Muslims over contestation over how the society is supposed to be run. Now, one may say that, so what? Different Hindu castes also live together separately. That is, every caste living is their own tola or mohalla, or even in the urban centers you find this kind of ghettoization, some pattern of ghettoization which goes on. But the point is that, the Hindu caste at least are united by a common religious framework. There is some unity between them, there is some organic connections between them. And different castes are also united by different, you will find something very interesting. The Gotras are also very common. You will find the same name of Gotras between different castes and so on. The myths and the legends also, interlink those different castes of Hinduism. So it's a very wrong comparison to say that Muslims also live separately, different Hindu castes also live separately. So how on the earth can you say that Hindus and Muslims have never lived together, but Hindus have lived together? Because I say that this is just like comparing that, Punjab and Tamil Nadu are in India. So how can you say that America is not in India? This is a kind of faulty logic which is being deployed. So the point is that the Hindus and Muslims live together, but they always live together separately, and they share a very violent past with each other, and something which has never been put to rest. There has been no honest Hindu-Muslim dialogue in this country for a millennia. It has never been an honest dialogue. Whenever Hindus and Muslims meet, what a great culture, composite culture, Ganga, Jamna, what not, I don't understand what they talk. But the point is that they've never talked honestly with each other. Look, this is the problem I have with you. This is what you have done, or this is what you're doing as of today. Never. The Hindu and Muslims are so separate from each other even today that they can't even talk honestly. And whenever they meet, they put all these smiley faces, good faces, and talk all good things about each other. And this is because no attempt has been ever made to do that, So this Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb was always an urban feudal construct which had no serious taker outside that limited circle. In the villages, whatever unity existed between the Hindus and Muslims, or the commonality which existed, was simply because the caste identity of Hindus and Muslims dominated in day-to-day life, not their religious identity. And also because most of the Muslims in India are converts from different Hindu caste. Lots of Rajputs converted to Islam, lots of Brahmins convert to Islam, lots of artisan caste convert to Islam. Some of the Dalits, it depends from region to region, they converted to Islam. So it's a very widespread, very complex pattern of conversion to Islam. But these Hindu castes from let's say from the Rajputs or the Brahmins to the Dalits, when they converted to Islam, they carried with them their pre-Islamic culture, their pre-Islamic identities, their pre-Islamic solidarities, social linkages. And this is what you see as the, some vestiges of common Hindu-Muslim culture in the village level. But all that is very difficult to find today, because all that evaporated very quickly with the rise of the pan-Islamism and the Islamic reformist movements. The Islamic reformist movements in India were basically pan-Islamist movement. They always wanted to form a stringent strain of Islam. What is called Reformation in Islam in the subcontinent is about purging the Muslim society of any influence of the pre-Islamic past. And it's very difficult to find common culture even of that kind at the ground level, even in the villages between Hindus and Muslims. It never takes much for the Hindu-Muslim riots to erupt. And there was nothing surprising about the anti-CAA riots, which runs for months. In Bengal, the Hindu houses were being attacked, public property was being attacked, the Hindu people were being killed all across the country simply for supporting the CAA. But I'm saying it is not at all surprising. It was expected, because as the political communities, Hindus and Muslims had never agreed on the big questions of the day, and that is why we had the partition of India. Now, lots of you might find that I'm talking in a very communal manner, or I have very extreme views on these issues. No, I have none. I'm simply stating the things as they are. Even if you say that this is a problem and you want to solve it, first you have to accept why the problem exists and what is the nature of the problem. And I'm saying it up front that Hindus and Muslims as political communities have never lived together peacefully. They do not agree on the big questions of the day. So agreeing on, let's say, something like should we have subsidy on the electricity bill or not, it's not the thing we're talking about. We're talking about the big questions of society and civilizations. They don't agree. They don't see eye to each other. Why? Because both of them have separate civilizational narratives. What we're witnessing today, now since the time is less, I have to complete this talk. Perhaps we can, if we were in person at the Pondicherry, we could have a question and answer session, but I will just conclude by saying that what we are witnessing today is the twilight of the First Republic. The Bharatiya Janata Party, or the BJP, is but a modern vehicle of the historical process of the rise of the Hindu Rashtra. In North, Jammu and Kashmir is fully integrated. In the South, the Dravidianism is melting away, and soon Tamil Nadu will become the strongest fortress of Hindutva in India. In the East, the Bengal is turning saffron. In the West, the secular parties must ally with the local Hindutva party to survive. The political debate has shifted decisively from secular, pseudo-secular paradigm to Hindu, pseudo-Hindu paradigm. The Ram Mandir is reborn. The CAA is the law. The National Popular Registration or National Population Register is underway. NRC will happen sooner or later. And what we see is this entire edifice, entire structure of the First Republic, all its assumptions, all its certainties of the Nehruvian socialism, Nehruvian secularism is simply crumbling away. And we see, we can't really put our hand on it as of now, but we can see a new structure is rising in India. Although history is never linear and we don't know what will happen in the coming decades. But what is true is that Hindu nationalism has always been the bedrock of Indian state and Indian polity. And however, as we witness the rise of the new republic, the question which we must be asking ourselves, what should be the shape of this new republic, because that is more important. There's no point crying over the first republic. Now it's over. I mean, 70 years is more than enough for any kind of political formation entity to survive. Nations change, countries change, everything changes after at least 70, 80 years. But the point is that is becoming a Hindu state the destiny of India? We don't know. There's no clear answer. There's no clear answer because barring few instances in the past, in the history, we do not have a model of the Hindu state. I mean, the ancient Indian dynasties, the different Hindu kingdoms always patronized different religions. They were always multi-religious, multicultural. We do not need the modern liberals to teach us what is multiculturalism, what is multi-religious society. But apart from Vijayanagar Empire, I don't find any Hindu entity being created explicitly as the Hindu state. So we don't know what will the shape and contour of the state. Because remember, even the Hindu right movement in India or Hindu nationalists in India never ever developed a theory of the state. Because it was not something so debatable for them. They took it as given, that India is supposed to be a democratic country, is supposed to be a Hindu majority secular country. You see, even in the partition time, two parties are made out to be the villain in the secular retelling of the past. One is Muslim League, other one is Hindu Mahasabha. And nothing can be far from the truth. Because you read the manifestos of Hindu Mahasabha, you read their election manifestos, their documents. Hindu Mahasabha was always arguing for individual rights. It was always arguing for freedom of religion. It was arguing that India should remain and become, the independent India should become a secular state. It never ever argued for a Hindu state. Whereas the Muslim League was arguing for a caliphate, an Islamic state, and not just an Islamic state, the Islamic state which can complete the historical process of the conquest and the conversion of India, creating the new Medina, the famous book that we all know by Venkat Tulipala. So we don't know, because a Hindu movement or Hindu nationalism itself has never concerned itself with the Hindu Rajya, and it has always concerned itself with the Hindu Rashtra. But the point is that Hindu Rashtra already exists. The debate is that as the new republic rises, as the second republic rises in India, in this twilight of the first republic, we must all sit together and discuss what should be the future. Is it a Hindu state, or is it a new kind of a secular state which maintains and which respects this civilizational entity and demographic realities of the Republic of India? Thank you, and thank you audience, and also thank you to the organizers for inviting me here at the Pondi Lit Fest. Hoping to see you next year in person at Pondicherry. Thank you.